So, let's talk about Africa. When you think of the continent, what comes to mind? Maybe it's the incredible wildlife, the music that makes you want to move, or the sheer breathtaking landscapes. But there's another side to the story, a much more complicated one. Africa is sitting on a treasure chest. We're talking gold, diamonds, oil, cobalt, the stuff that literally powers your phone, and vast fertile lands that could feed the world. You can't talk about who controls Africa today without first taking a trip back in time. Imagine this. A bunch of guys in Europe get together in Berlin back in 1884. They pull out a map of Africa, a continent most of them have never even been to, and start drawing lines with a ruler. They didn't care about the people who lived there, the kingdoms that existed, or the different cultures. This was the scramble for Africa. Less of a scramble and more of a smash and grab. These borders are basically the same ones we see today, and they've been causing problems ever since. Colonialism rewired the continent to benefit Europe. Railways to mines and ports, plantations and export routes. They built one-way tracks designed to get resources out of Africa as quickly and cheaply as possible. Colonialism trained African economies to export raw materials, cocoa, cotton, copper, rather than make finished goods. Independence came mid-20th century. But many countries inherited broken systems, bad engines, and massive debt. Fast forward to today. The old colonial powers haven't exactly gone home. Instead of governors, you have CEOs, ambassadors, and new levers of power. France still holds sway in West and Central Africa, a network sometimes called Francafrique, political, economic, and military ties. Many countries still use the CFA franc, a link to the euro and to Paris's economic influence. The United States frames its involvement around security, democracy, and humanitarian aid, and leans on AFRICOM and trade tools like AGOA. It's softer than colonialism, more strategic partnership than ownership, but it's influence nonetheless. Multinational corporations often have revenues larger than some countries' GDPs. Massive bargaining power. Think Shell in Nigeria, Glencore in the DRC, corporate power, opaque deals, capital flight. Investors can hold huge shareholdings and permanent board influence, not the CEO, but able to veto decisions. African leaders must balance their people's needs with demands from powerful external players. You can't talk about power in Africa today without talking about China, the biggest new player on the scene. For the last couple of decades, China has rolled into Africa and changed the game. You need a bridge, a stadium, a railway, an airport, they'll build it, and fast. China calls it a win-win partnership, with an official policy of non-interference and no strings attached. But the money isn't free. These projects are paid with massive loans, often resource-backed, paid back with oil, minerals like cobalt, timber, and other natural resources. That has led to accusations of debt-trap diplomacy. If a country can't repay, China could gain control of infrastructure. A port or a railway could end up operated by foreign firms. Imagine lending a car and losing it if you miss payments. It's not simple. China brought fast, visible development, roads, power, and ports, but often with low transparency and Chinese labor. Another old power has been quietly making a comeback in Africa: Russia. Russia's strategy is different. Subtle, focused, often operating in the shadows. Its exports are often arms, mercenaries, and political advisors. Groups like private military contractors provide security in exchange for influence and resources. Countries such as the CAR, Mali, and Sudan have welcomed Russian help to fight instability. In exchange, Moscow often secures mining concessions: gold, diamonds, uranium. They also wage information campaigns on social media and use state media to push narratives that undermine Western influence. By propping up friendly regimes, Russia gains allies at the United Nations and access to strategic locations. It's a low-cost, high-impact way to project power, guns and keyboards both in play. Amidst talk of foreign powers, the most important players are Africans themselves. African leaders are not passive pawns. They sign the deals, hold the pen, and make choices. But power is often concentrated in small elites: presidents, families, and political business allies. That concentration leads to corruption and state capture, resources used for a few instead of the many. Mining licenses, government contracts, and oil blocks are handed out by gatekeepers, the people foreign companies need to keep happy. This is a legacy of colonial structures, new faces but old systems. Not all leaders are corrupt. Many genuinely push development, but uneven systems make broad progress hard. Some leaders, like Paul Kagame, are cited for pushing development, technology, and anti-corruption, though critics note human rights concerns. Control struggles also happen at home. Protests, reform movements, and grassroots leaders are reshaping the debate. To see how this plays out, let's zoom into real examples on the ground. The DRC and Nigeria. The DRC is mind-bogglingly rich in minerals, more cobalt than anywhere else on Earth. Cobalt is essential for lithium-ion batteries, in your phone and electric cars. You'd think the DRC would be wealthy, but instead many communities are among the poorest. Large multinational mining companies operate industrial mines while millions depend on artisanal mining. Concessions are often opaque. A huge portion of mineral wealth flows out with little benefit to the national treasury. Artisanal miners, men, women, sometimes children, dig with basic tools in dangerous conditions and sell to middlemen. In Nigeria, oil has been both a blessing and a curse, dominated by majors like Shell, ExxonMobil, Chevron. Oil wealth has often been siphoned by elites, leaving the Niger Delta polluted and underdeveloped, sparking protests and militants. Foreign companies, local elites, and communities fight for control where the resources actually are. With all these powerful hands pulling strings, you might think the story is over, but it's not. Africa is the youngest continent, over 60% under 25, connected, educated, and more vocal than ever. They grew up with the internet. A single tweet or WhatsApp can spark a national conversation or a massive protest. Think End SARS in Nigeria or the Sudan uprisings, young people demanding change and accountability. But youth aren't just protesting, they're innovating. Tech hubs in Lagos, Nairobi, Cape Town, startups solving local problems. Artists, musicians, filmmakers are telling their own stories and exporting culture on their terms. There's a growing demand for transparency. Activists and journalists exposing corruption and asking, where is the money going? The fight is difficult and often dangerous, but the people are no longer just spectators. They are active players, fighting to take control of their own destiny. So after all this, who controls Africa today? The honest answer is, it's complicated. There's no single hand on the wheel. Europe's historical influence, the United States' strategic interests, corporate and financial power. On another side, China pulls with massive infrastructure loans and fast projects. In the shadows, Russia pulls via security deals, mercenaries, and political influence. African leaders are not just being pulled, they are pulling back, choosing partners, and sometimes enriching themselves. But the most important force is over 1 billion people, young, connected, demanding transparency and good governance. Control of Africa is not settled. It's in flux, a messy, ongoing struggle where the home team is beginning to write its playbook. The game is still being played, but for the first time in a long time, Africans are stepping onto the field to shape the outcome.